Today, we're checking out our favorite cars that are over $60,000 Canadian. Let us know in the comments what you think.
Hey guys, it's Aiden with Upper James Toyota, and today we're going to be taking a closer look at a truck that's going to compete directly with Ford, GMC, and Chevy. It's a 2024 Toyota TRD Pro Tundra. Let's check it out and see how it works for you. Okay, so the Tundra was first released in 2000, with the prior generation launching in about 2007. Now, since 2007, they've had a couple small little updates, but for 2022 and above, which is the facelifted version on the inside and outside, this is the new one you will be getting. So this looks very, very similar to the first generation of the 2022s, which is the newest current generation for a Tundra. Talking differences between the old generation and the new one, biggest controversial topic is going to be the powertrain. Out goes the 5.7 V8 and in comes the 3.5 liter twin turbo V6. So you can actually no longer spec a Tundra with a V8, which is kind of the way that most manufacturers are going. Now, with that being said, this one comes with a hybrid powertrain, which is also a new thing for 2022 and a lot of our top performing vehicles that we offer. Now, looking at this truck from the front end, a couple things you're gonna notice off the bat. This being a TRD Pro, it is the most off-road capable Tundra that we offer. So you're gonna see TRD Pro written all over this truck. I'm gonna show you a couple small things where they do show it as well. One interesting thing, there's no logo on the front. They just say Toyota in the biggest letters on the front grille, letting everyone know you are in a new TRD Pro Tundra, and is the only Tundra that comes standard with this optional grille. Now, one thing you're gonna notice is that there's gonna be LED fog lights on both left and right side of the front grille. Interesting though, you're gonna have this camo trim on the front, on the interior seats, on the fender flares, and on the rear bumper. It's a little touch that Toyota has done to add a little bit of that off-roadiness onto this kind of vehicle. Now, a really, really interesting thing on the Tundras, you're gonna notice on the one side of your fender flares, actually on both sides you're gonna have them, and on the tops of your grille as well, you're gonna have these little orange marker lights. And inside, you're gonna see the first TRD spec or little quirk onto this truck. Now, oddly enough, it's the only Tundra that comes standard with this. The reason that is because the fender flares are so wide on the truck. Under our legal, I guess, needs to say the least, it's so wide you actually need to have orange marker lights on the front and red on the rear, just like the 2024 Ford Raptor. One big thing that a lot of customers love, you can get this on a TRD Pro Tacoma, and I'm hoping you can get this on the new TRD 4Runner in 25 when they redesign, but you're gonna have this light bar underneath Toyota. Now, it's kind of like to underline a Toyota to kind of let people know you are in a new TRD Pro. However, I think the looks of this in the nighttime that have, your triple high beam LED headlights, sequential turn signals, the two fog lights on the bottom, as well as your light bar, it really does make this truck look very, very aggressive when all the lights are on. Now, with that being said, the front end of the vehicle actually has a lot of active things for off-roading and for the performance of this vehicle. So you actually have active side vents to cool down your brakes, your engine, your turbos, and as obviously, of course, you're gonna be your tires as well. But I think they've done a very, very cool job on the front end of this, kind of making this look a little bit different than any other Tundras we currently have in our lineup. Now, you'll also notice the hood is very, very large on a TRD Pro, and you're gonna see these little cutouts on both the left and right side of the hood. Now, it is gonna say TRD Pro on the side. Typically on this vehicle though, most other Tundras that are gonna have the iForce Max hybrid system will actually have iForce Max on the side. You will not see this written on the outside of the truck at all, only on the inside, which I will show you later on in the video. But I think it's really, really interesting what Toyota has done to really push the TRD Pro-ness of the new 2024 TRD Pro. Hey guys, I know you guys are enjoying the video, but please do not forget to like and subscribe so we can become the #1 Toyota YouTube channel on earth. Okay, so now taking a look onto the side and onto the wheel well of the TRD Pro Tundra. A couple things to note. You're gonna be getting BBS TRD off-road wheels, which I think look incredible on this vehicle. It's not too complicated, but obviously make the truck look a little bit more off-road. Now, a very, very big change from the outgoing generation for the Tundra, now this obviously changed in 2022, is going to be your suspension. So they had Bilstein shocks in the previous generation. You now have Fox shocks in the new one. So these are going to give you more stability on the off-road, more stability when you're driving the vehicle or even cornering it, because the performance of this truck really is impressive from a manufacturer like Toyota. Now, looking at the big tires, obviously you have all-terrain tires on this vehicle. You could take these off-road and have no issue there. The cool thing about the Tundra, which I actually think they've done a very, very good job with, is having this camo trim, just like the front, extending onto the side. So this truck can obviously be optioned in different color options. I like having the white though. It's the only color, maybe with the Terra, which is kind of an off red, orange kind of looking color. That one also makes the camo pop a bit more, but I think obviously on the white color of the vehicle, the black accents with the TRD Pro badging on the hood of the vehicle being black, with the side fender flares being excelled in this camo trim, black wheels, black rock rails. They have done a very, very good job at keeping this looking very, very mean for that next truck driver. Now, another great feature onto the side of a TRD Pro Tundra. A lot of people ask for running boards on a vehicle like this, and I could see the appeal to have running boards on obviously a full-size pickup truck. However, for a truck you typically would be taking off-road with all the off-road capabilities, they're gonna include something from the factory, which is this big black bar, which is just a rock rail. So basically it's just saying, if you are off-roading, going over, big rocks, boulders, a surface that's not as flat, if, for example, the train came up, it's not gonna damage the actual bed or the bottom of the truck. It's just gonna obviously hit this rock rail, keeping the truck and you very, very safe. Okay, so just like the front of the TRD Pro Tundra with the orange markers, you're gonna be having the red ones on the rear. So they're gonna be on both of the rear sides and the wheel wells of the vehicle, as well as on the trunk. Now, the cool thing about the trunk on the new TRD Pro Tundra and most of the Tundras, you're gonna have a very, very easy and accessible power tailgate option, which is right here built into the brake light. You hit this button and the tailgate will actually come down for you. Now, if you've ever driven an old generation or just any previous Tundra, you will typically notice this is a very heavy tailgate. It's very different now and also very, very light. So it's easy to load things in and very easy to obviously close it up when you're loading stuff into your TRD Pro. Now, a couple things to note though on the TRD Pro. Typically, trucks are going to be offered in two different configurations, a short bed and a long bed version. A 5.5 for Toyota or 6.5 is our long bed. TRD Pros are only offered in a short bed, so 5.5 foot. Now, I understand why they did that, because it's an off-road vehicle. You're gonna have more weight, and obviously a longer vehicle will be harder to off-road in the sense of, your cab's one size and your bed's even longer. So it gives you a bit more practicality for the off-road version of it. But looking at this bed, you're still gonna have a lot of space to be throwing stuff in there. Even if you're not off-roading the vehicle and just wanted a truck that's very focused for that beefy off-road look, but you're still daily driving it, this definitely could be, and it's very practical for an everyday driver. Now, this one has installed hard tunnel cover. That's a direct, genuine factory accessory from Toyota. It can fold back in like 3 stages, which is good to basically keep anything inside locked up and safe. And obviously when it comes to our winters and obviously rainy days, it's good to keep anything dry in the bed of the truck. Now, a couple other things to note on the back of it. You're gonna have the camo trim on the top here by the rear handle, as well as down below here on your rear bumper. The one interesting thing that I noticed when this truck originally released in 2022 was the fact that it's weird that typically on most car manufacturers, you're gonna have Toyota on the back and maybe a badge on the front that tells you what it is. Not this one. They have Toyota in large on the front, a small little Toyota emblem on the actual, power trunk door handle for your tailgate, written in massive, which is into the actual frame of your door latch, is gonna say TRD Pro, letting everyone know that you are in a new TRD Pro 24 Tundra. Okay guys, let's take a closer peek onto the inside of a TRD Pro Tundra. First thing to think about is going to be that you can option this truck in 2 different interior color options. So red, as you're seeing right now, which is called Cockpit Red, and that's also shared in a new Camry, and the outgoing Camry also had the red. You can also get this with a black interior as well. So everything else is still the exact same, it's just the colors have just changed around for the seats. Not typical that you see a pickup truck with a red interior. However, I think it's very, very interesting, especially with the TRD-ness of the TRD Pro Tundra, is that red is always that common thing and that common color for a TRD. So they have showed a lot of red on the inside. You're gonna have red seatbelts, as you see here, which are just from the factory. Obviously your red seats, red on the dash, and red around this massive Toyota on the side for your passenger. On top of your center console here is going to be red. Your shift knob, red stripe with the red TRD. Your push button is also going to be TRD and will also be red. The red stripe on your steering wheel with TRD on the bottom of the steering wheel. So they have really gone overkill, I think, with a lot of the TRD features on the vehicle, but I think is really, really interesting for a truck that is built for the off-road capabilities like this one has. Now, with the off-roadness of this vehicle, you're actually still getting a lot of great comfort features in this truck. So I think Toyota's done a very, very good job at basically giving consumers a truck that is great for something like the off-road, but also very practical for everyday use. You still have cooled seats, heated seats, a massive 14-inch touch display, a full digital MID in front of the driver, JBL sound system, a panoramic sunroof. You've got all the different off-road crawl control features, multi-train select features as well. So multi-train select and crawl control are basically just like an off-road cruise control, or to get the vehicle unstuck if you're ever in deep mud or snow, which is interesting. Now, talking about mud and snow, for example, down here you have your different drive modes. So typically in a Toyota, you have 3 off the bat. You have Eco, Normal, and Sports. If you actually push MTS on the vehicle, you're gonna actually have basically a feature to use all the different drive modes that this vehicle has for the off-road, which will include deep snow, rock, dirt, mud and sand. So it kind of caters to showing and highlighting the different off-road capabilities with the new shocks, with the new wheels, and the new powertrain, with obviously a very new transmission on this vehicle for anything off-road for a consumer. Now, talking about practicality again on this vehicle, I'm going to be showing the center console on this because they do have a lot of storage on this. So you have your first little flip up here, basically good for if you want to put like a phone, any change, any gift certificates, or like a Tim's card, Starbucks card, something like that, which is just quick and easy to grab. Now, if you pull the handle on my side, you'll be getting a lot more features on the inside of here. And a couple cool things to note. You've got a USB down here, you've got a USB up here, a USB-C lightning port as well in your center console, and a couple little coin holders as well. So you can actually fit different sized coins in there in case you're going through a drive-through or something like that you need a few coins for to park or something of that nature. Now, one really interesting thing, you pull out this little divider on the inside of a Tundra, and you're gonna see on the top, it's gonna say Toyota, and you're actually gonna have 3 cutouts of, basically looks like what we have, a Tacoma, a 4Runner, and a Tundra. And if you look on the inside of the center console here too, you're gonna have right down here what it looks like a little Tacoma or maybe a little Tundra, and another one down here as well, which is just a little feature that a lot of people do not know comes standard on this truck, and something kind of cool when Toyota released it that I obviously wanted to look around this truck and see all of its, small little, I want to say Easter eggs that this truck kind of has. Looking on the front of the vehicle as well, I think that the layout that they have done, and it's basically standard on all of the Tundras now, with this big updated screen and the new tech on the vehicle, which is a very, very big change onto the new generation Tundra. Before, you used to get a 7-inch screen on a Tundra. You now have, starting at an 8-inch, working all the way up to this vehicle, which is a 14-inch. And you're gonna have a lot of features that the outgoing model just didn't have. That's gonna have, say, a wireless phone charger, 360 camera, all your different camera angles to look into the bed of the truck, small things like that that the consumer still wanted to have in the new generation for a Tundra. And the last thing I want to touch on is going to be the one feature that a lot of people loved in the outgoing Tundra and the 4Runner, which is going to be your power rear glass. So all the windows will go down, your sunroof will open, but the cool thing is that on the rear, you can actually do this, and you can actually push down your rear glass. So with that simple button, you now look at the bed of the truck and it's completely open. So if you want extra airflow, they have done a very, very good job, and I'm so happy they have kept this in a new generation Tundra. All right, guys, now taking a closer look into the rear of a new Tundra. So a couple things to note, this being a Crew Max, you're gonna have a lot of space. Now, I left my seat exactly where I was sitting up front, which is where I'd happily be driving this vehicle, and I still have loads of room. I will say I'm just on the top of the actual height of the cab, I guess I could say. But if I kind of slouch down a bit, I am more than comfortable. Obviously, the red continues into the back. Same with these camo seats. Now, they really have done a lot of red on the inside of this. Seeing this truck with a black interior, for example, having the red stitching and the contrast there looks very cool as well. But for the red, it's just something you don't see that often. And I actually think if I were to ever get into a TRD Pro Tundra, I would option mine with red. I think it does look very, very cool and something that definitely stands out between different competitors on the market currently. Now, a couple things: you pull down your obviously center down here, you're gonna have two cup holders as well in your storage for both of the doors. Now, a couple things to note though: you have two vents here with a little storage area here as well. You're gonna have two charging ports as well and an actual household outlet. You could plug in, say, a laptop charger or something like that if you're on the go and working, which is interesting. Now, other than that, no heated seats, no cooled seats. You would get those in different models of a new Tundra hybrid, like a Capstone or a Platinum. However, this vehicle and the way they built it is for the off-road. So some things on the rear they didn't include, and that's okay. I don't think the consumer will be upset about not having heated rear or cooled seats. You still have the vents, you still have more airflow in the back. So I'm more than fine sitting back here on a nice warm day. Okay guys, so to wrap things up on the new TRD Pro Tundra, let's go over some figures. So powering this is a 3.5 twin turbo V6. It's be making about 437 horsepower, 583 pound-feet of torque. Now that's going to be sent through a 10-speed automatic transmission, which is an upgrade from the outgoing 6-speed auto. Now with this crazy power, you're still going to be getting some very, very good fuel efficiency, averaging a combined about 11.7 liters per 100. Now, talking price point on a 2024 TRD Pro Tundra, this vehicle comes in at $86,910 as your MSRP, plus obviously your optional fees, freight and PDI, subtotal of taxes, and your dealer charges with licensing. So this is a very, very premium dollar to be spending, and I think Toyota has finally delivered a truck that is going to be giving the consumer that kind of peace of mind, knowing that the dollar they're spending is definitely very, very well worth it in a vehicle like this. All right, guys, thanks so much for checking out this TRD Pro Tundra video. If you did like this video, please do not forget to subscribe so you do not miss any more of our future Toyota-related content, and we'll check you guys out in the next video. For the last production year in 1989, fast forward 35 years and Toyota brought back an old gem. This is a 2025 premium package Toyota Land Cruiser, and this is gonna be my ideal spec if I'm ever gonna be buying one of these vehicles. My name's Aiden with Upper James Toyota. We're gonna take a closer peek to exactly see what this package offers you and your family, so stay tuned and let's check it out. If you guys are in the market for a new or used vehicle, do not forget to click the link in the top of our description. Now, when the redesigned Land Cruiser arrived here, I did a video on a first edition 2024 model. Now, that being what then was the fully loaded version, that was going to be a very rare Land Cruiser to have, only limited to 290 units for all of Canada for the 2024 model year. Now, fast forward 1 year ahead of that, this is going to be the highest trim package you can get on the Land Cruiser, and they no longer offer that first edition. Now, obviously, if you were ever, very fortunate enough to get behind the wheel of one of those and you have those in your garage, consider yourself very lucky, judging off of just the number of units that they made. But now for 2025, it's a little bit more accessible to get one of these vehicles. And out of only 3 trim levels they're now offered on the Land Cruiser, this is going to be my favorite, and I think your best bang for the buck you will be spending. Now, powering this bad boy is going to be a 2.4 4-cylinder paired up with a hybrid system. This could be making some pretty serious numbers: 326 horsepower, 465 pound-feet of torque through an 8-speed automatic gearbox. Now, obviously Toyota offers quite a few SUVs, especially right now during 2025. This being one of 9 that we offer, this is going to be one of our softer riding vehicles, which is actually pretty cool considering how this is basically meant for someone taking this off-road. Now, I'm pretty sure most people getting behind the wheel of one of these will probably never take this, off to a mountain, off to a dirt road, and actually really off-road this like this vehicle is capable of. But it's still pretty cool that you have that option onto, a pretty spacious and a pretty cool looking vehicle for you and your family. Now, talking front end design on the new Land Cruiser, I'm gonna start down here and talk about this interesting front grille. And I like the fact that Toyota has kind of gone away from that traditional Toyota logo and actually have just written Toyota in pretty big letters across the front grille. still, I think kind of keeping this boxy style on the vehicle for, the old design 35 years ago that still had that boxier look, I think is a pretty cool option that Toyota has decided to do and continue with for the redesigned version. Now, that was offered on last generation, either the first edition or the 1958. They still offer it on the 1958 today. However, if you're gonna give me, the appearance of both, I will take this design with these cool rectangle style headlights over the circular ones. I'm not too sure why I'm not a big fan of it. I just think having this boxier look on the vehicle, I think Toyota's done a pretty cool job to style it and keep that styling the same, throughout the interior and the exterior of this vehicle. This is gonna be my favorite spec that we have offered. This is actually gonna be the first Land Cruiser I have ever seen with the Java interior, which is the brown option. And it's going to be my favorite out of the black or the brown. I think that having that interesting, different interior color option is a pretty cool one. And I like the fact that it's paired up with this exterior color, which is Windchill Pearl. Also, the first time I've ever seen this vehicle shown in white. And I'm really happy that it's shown in white because it's gonna show off my favorite feature on the Land Cruiser, which are going to be these gloss black door handles. Now, I've done a review on this vehicle beforehand, and I've seen other Land Cruisers on the road. I've seen the black ones, I've seen, the underground color, and I think both of those colors, or all the colors, look great on this vehicle. However, having a white one here, I love the fact that you see these small accents on the vehicle pop a little bit more over, the other colors that I have seen, and I've actually only ever seen one white one, which is this one here in front of me today. If you're gonna pair that up with the best rim option, in my opinion, on this vehicle, you're getting 20-inch alloy wheels. And I like the fact these are like a gunmetal and not gloss black. I typically like a gloss black wheel. However, having this kind of like more of a satin or like a matte finish, I think Toyota's done a pretty cool job to, design this outside, inside, and they've done a very good job to keep it, catered to a very, very aesthetically pleasing looking vehicle. And I like the fact on this Land Cruiser, you're getting 20-inch tires versus 18s on another package. I think that this kind of rounds off the wheel well a little bit better, in my opinion. And I think, it just makes the car fit a little bit more evenly than having an 18 on this package. The only couple things I'm not going to be a huge fan of. Number one, if you see my previous videos, you know exactly what I'm talking about. That's going to be this fender flare. I do not like the fact it's this matte black plastic. Getting into a vehicle at this price point, I would expect this to have, gloss black. I would think it would be very cool if they threw in some, matte black carbon or something like that. Obviously, I know for a manufacturer like Toyota, that's a pretty, far reach to go that. And obviously it would increase price drastically. But I still think having a different option on our exterior of some of our vehicles could play into having more customizations for the everyday consumer. Now, the other thing, which I'm just not gonna be a big fan of, oddly enough from Toyota, we offer a few vehicles that come standard with running boards, this being one of them here. However, because of the size of this vehicle, and obviously I'm being a bit taller of a person, I don't need this running board to actually get in and out of this vehicle. I would be way more happy, A, with just no running boards, or B, with a running board style that we offer from Toyota called Predator Side Steps. That has an individual step for a driver and your rear passengers on both the left and right side of your vehicle. And I think having that mixed with, the beefiness and the off-road look of this vehicle would round it off 10 times better. Some clients have asked me, Aiden, do you wish they had, the automated running boards on one of these? I'm also gonna say no. I don't think you need it. And if you need that, you can move to a Tundra, Tacoma Hybrid, a new Sequoia. There are different options that, Toyota offers for something like that. However, in my personal opinion, I would just love it. We take those out, we make those fenders gloss black, and this would have been the absolute dream spec for me. Now, let's talk rear end for the Land Cruiser. Number one, I mentioned the door handles. I love that small little touch Toyota has decided to do, and obviously on a white exterior color, I think it's gonna make the vehicle pop a little bit more. I also love the fact they decided to throw Land Cruiser all in black on the back trunk of this vehicle. I think that is that same little touch throughout the vehicle, which I'm going to be in favor of. The only thing I'm not gonna like, I really wish they blacked out the iForce Max badge. It's just something, a little bit of chrome on the vehicle, which typically is not my favorite. On the white, you don't notice it as much as say underground or black. However, that's the one thing I just wish they kept that black theme and they glossed that out to make it, just look a little bit more even on the vehicle. Now, talking about one of my favorite features on a Land Cruiser, it's going to be this little button over here. You push this in your rear glass, you have a little, I want to say like a finger step to obviously open up your rear glass here. I love having this feature because you don't have to open up your trunk to access it. So if you had boxes or stuff in it, or you had anything in the back of the vehicle that you didn't want to come out, even say that's a dog, for example, you didn't want them to jump out of the vehicle, you can just simply open up this glass, throw stuff in, and it's pretty simple. You just simply close it down like that, and it clips into place. So I love having that little accessible feature on one of these vehicles that obviously make it a little bit easy getting in and out of the vehicle. Now, if you want the full trunk to open, very simple. Hit that button like I just did, and your trunk opens up. Now, this is where things get really interesting. When this vehicle first arrived here, I was showing some clients who had a few on order with me, and they got, to the back of the vehicle thinking, Aiden, there's definitely a third row back here. There's 4 cup holders. There's 2 charging ports. There's storage compartments for both your rear right and rear left passenger. If you could just imagine a bench to be in the back here. You lift up your cargo liner, you lift up your cargo mat, there's no seats back here. There's only 5, which is pretty interesting when you look at this closest competitor on today's market, which would be the Lexus GX. Now, if this vehicle, just got off the truck, you would have this little brown box in the back. It's gonna have your tow ball, which goes over this mount here, because these vehicles do come tow ready from Toyota, at least here in Canada. I'm not too sure about the States. However, interesting enough, you see this little design on this box, and it has a label that says ball mount, but it doesn't say Land Cruiser, it says Lexus GX. So it's funny that, they're kind of throwing apart from Lexus, and I know Lexus and Toyota basically sister companies, but it's funny that there's actually not a ball mount specifically for the Land Cruiser. It's gonna come directly from a Lexus. And that's the interesting thing about this vehicle, is that it does compete very close to the Lexus GX with, I would say, 3 massive differences. Number 1, Lexus GX only comes as an 8-passenger or a 7-passenger. So if you want that extra space, that GX could be the option for you. Number 2, it comes with a V6 versus a 4-cylinder. So some people in today's market, they say, Aiden, I need a V6. I don't want a 4-cylinder. Sure, it makes great power, but I want to, have that, extra power on the highway when I'm merging, and I don't think I'll have it out of a 4-cylinder. If that's, a customer like you, whether it's a Land Cruiser or just another manufacturer, I would urge everyone, come and drive one. If you get behind the wheel of one of these, sure, it's a 4-cylinder, but they make a lot of power, and you can easily get this vehicle up to speed pretty quickly. Number 3 is going to be the biggest difference between the GX and the Land Cruiser. That's going to be price. One of these, I don't know exactly the direct specifics of these pricing, but I know it's in and around a $22,000 to about $30,000 more than this Land Cruiser in front of me. So obviously that's a pretty big increase. If it's only, 5, 6, 7, 8 grand, in the grand scheme of things, looking at that for a vehicle that comes in an $80,000 price point as MSRP, then yes, that's not a huge increase. But if you're adding, 20, 25, 30 grand, that's where things get pretty interesting. So let me know in the comments. I really want to hear what you guys have to say. If you were looking, at the Land Cruiser, if you thought it's going to have 8 seats, 7 seats, and then if you did move to Lexus, which is the closest thing to this, or you just change manufacturers entirely. Let me know down below, because I want to be reading, what you guys have kind of gotten yourselves into and your thoughts on that. Now, back to the Land Cruiser. Big thing about this vehicle, trunk space is huge, and I think that's a pretty cool option, and I'm happy, that Toyota has that on this vehicle. I find that some of our vehicles look very spacious from the outside, and then once you get in it and it's actually, you throw in a few extra people, you throw in a couple suitcases, groceries, a Costco run, then space gets very limited. However, having this and the seats that will go all the way down and actually recline up to basically lay parallel with the front 2 seats of this vehicle, they've definitely offered a lot of cargo space for you and your family. Now, I'm gonna jump into this and feature off the new interior color, which is Java. So give me 2 seconds and I'll be right back. All right, guys, let's jump into the inside of this Land Cruiser. Starting off with the color. Now, this being Java interior, it's going to be my favorite color option. I like this way over the black. I think it just, makes the vehicle look a little bit different. And I actually feel like it makes the vehicle feel a little bit bigger because everything's not black on the inside. You can't spec this in any other way with, a different dash color and stuff like that, which you can, do that and customize on a Tacoma or the new 4Runner. I think that having this different color option just makes the vehicle pop a little bit better, in my opinion. Now, this being the Java interior, it's only offered on 2 exterior options. So that's going to be windshield pearl, which is this one here, or black. And I'm going to tell you, I've seen a black on black Land Cruiser. It was nice, but I definitely love the fact that this is the white exterior with this color option. I think Toyota has nailed it. It's not, a light brown. It's definitely a deeper brown, in my opinion, and kind of reminds me of either the Portobello interior or the Redwood interior, which were 2 color options for the interiors of a 4Runner and I believe a Highlander. I'm pretty sure. It's been a while since I've seen one of those interiors in front of me here, but I'm pretty sure that's the 2 options that it's the closest to. And I like this better than both of them combined. Now, I'm not going to go over in depth, every last feature on the inside of this vehicle. I'm just going to basically talk about what makes this the premium package and my favorite or, funny features that they have on the inside. Starting off with a few nice convenience features. Number 1, cooled seats, heated seats, 2-stage heated steering wheel, which I love. You also have power passenger and driver side seats. Now, this interior option is the only option, A, that's brown, and B, with genuine leather. The other option on this vehicle is just the Land Cruiser, which is number 2 on the 3 levels of your trim grades. Now, that comes with our Softex seats. And I always tell this to customers, Softex seats are great. I honestly can't tell a huge difference being on genuine leather versus the Softex. Maybe it's a little bit softer, maybe it's a little bit more durable, but obviously cost-wise, it's gonna cost you a little bit more to repair a genuine leather seat versus a Softex seat. So, that's something to definitely consider if you say had younger kids or a dog in here. You obviously don't wanna nick these seats because it would cost you a little bit more to repair. Now, I love the fact that this has one of my favorite features, which is pretty standard, but I like the fact that it is on this package, which is your which is your driver memory seat option. You have 2 options for that. I have the 2 buttons down here. So if I was driving this vehicle and I had my partner, for example, driving a vehicle, or my wife one day driving this vehicle, I could obviously set this to be not number 1 or number 2. So I like the fact that you kind of have that customization on the inside of a vehicle, which I know is pretty standard, but at least for Toyotas, most of our vehicles don't come with that option. So I like that. Number 2 is going to be a very cool option that they have specifically to this one. You open up your center console and you're going to be greeted with a very interesting button, and it says Cool Box. So Toyota states you could fit 4 355 milliliter water bottles directly right here. You push this button on and it will actually keep your drinks nice and cool. It could be drinks, it could be, any, snacks having a long road trip. So, I don't know about you guys, but I'm a big fan of, having, say, beef jerky or, any like cheese, stuff like that, like stuff you just want to snack on to keep you full while you're driving. Pretty cool to have that option on one of these vehicles. And, we now offer on a fully loaded Platinum Sienna a fridge on that vehicle, which kind of does the exact same thing. So it's interesting to see they have this just not called a fridge, because obviously this is just going to be your cool box feature, but still pretty cool from Toyota. Now, a couple other things I like the fact Toyota includes on this package. Number 1, I like the fact this has heads-up display. And if you've never driven a vehicle with that before, it basically takes this interesting little mirror system and projects your speed and some cool things that you maybe need to know while you're driving, like direction or, any speed signs, stuff like that. So I like the fact that's displayed on your dash above. Obviously, looking down below to your fully digital tachometer, it's not a big difference to kind of move your eyes that way, but I like the fact, convenience-wise, that it's there for you. If you use it, great. If not, no problem also. Another feature which I love on any one of our vehicles is going to be this digital rear view display mirror. Now, this is going to be an option which you can get on most of our vehicles. And I like the fact that there's a camera mounted on the back glass of this vehicle. That little, lip that I was opening up before I actually got onto the inside, and that has a camera mounted there. So in case I was having this vehicle filled, with boxes, it was packed with people, I like the fact that I could flip this back and it would then display a camera of what is is behind me. So it's pretty interesting to actually use. If you've ever driven one of our vehicles or your vehicle has it, let me know, because the only thing I ever notice while I'm driving it, A, I notice it's very clear, but B, it's just weird because typically I look through a mirror, right? So you're kind of used to having that like depth perception of looking at anything in this rear view display, but then you obviously throw a camera on there, and it's interesting because you can't really tell depth on the camera. So that definitely takes a little bit of time to get adjusted to. So let me know, if you guys like that or you don't like that, or if you have that feature and you never decide to use it, that's okay too. Now, I mentioned on the outside of this vehicle, this being kind of that boxier look, I like the fact they kind of kept those rectangles on the inside, which they've done. These cool climate control vents, I like the fact that everything's kind of boxed off. And I think that keeping that theme on the outside and then onto the inside, it's the small touch that Toyota has done, which kind of makes this vehicle stand out in our lineup. Now, a few things that I love on this vehicle. Number one, sound system. 14 speaker JBL sound system is standard on this package, and that is our best sound system that we offer. The only couple things I'm not going to be a huge fan of. Number one, and maybe I'm just not used to it yet because only a few of our vehicles have this safety feature, it's going to be this little screen located behind your steering wheel here, which then again kind of shows you those same little rectangles, that all of these little boxes kind of show the same design as your front grille of this vehicle. However, just behind that, behind your paddle shifters, you have this little screen. It's probably 3 inches long and it's pretty narrow. Now, it's called your driver monitor camera. Very interesting what Toyota has decided to do with this. Basically, what it'll do is if you're driving and you're for some reason looking to the right, or you're at a red light and you're looking at your passenger, or you're staring at something outside the window, the car will actually alert you and tell you to keep your eyes focused on the road. And the only annoying thing about this is that the reaction time that it will tell you, it's very short. So it's not like you could be looking to the side for 45 seconds and then it'll turn on. It's more like it'll turn on after 8, 9, 10 seconds. Now, you can turn that off. I personally would turn that off because A, I don't need the car telling me how to drive the vehicle. I feel pretty confident behind the wheel, but it's just something that I just find a nuisance on this vehicle. If you have it, let me know, because that's the one thing I'm not going to be a huge fan of. Now, the other few things that I, will opt in for the inside of this vehicle, I love the fact that this being, a family-oriented vehicle with the capabilities of taking this off-road, which I love having that 2-for-1. It's interesting that you have a lot of different drive modes down here. So you have, your ability to put this into mud, sand, off-road. You can go your 4-wheel drive, your all-wheel drive, or your, 2-wheel drive. You can customize it, according to what you want to do on the road. And I think that's pretty cool to have in a vehicle like this. I think that this vehicle on today's market gives customers, that option of, oh, I would love a pickup truck because I want to take it off-roading, or I want to do this with it, and it would be fun to take it here. Well, you kind of have the best of both worlds, having one of these vehicles, having, the capabilities of your everyday driving plus the off-road side. So I think it's a pretty cool vehicle that they decided to bring back for 2024 and now continued it into 2025. The only one thing I'm going to touch on before getting out of the inside is going to be directly above me. I wish they threw a moonroof on this vehicle. I think that would make it so much better. It would make it, so much more open. I don't mind the fact it's a sunroof. I just, there's a few things I wish they improved. I don't think you need this manual little retractor for your sunshade. Obviously, it's a sunny day out today, so having this closed benefits me. However, getting into a vehicle of this price point, I would expect this to be automated, and I'd also expect it to come with a moonroof. That's just me. In today's market, that's pretty standard for most vehicles. There's cars that come in at a way lower price point than this does that have a moonroof, and I just wish they included that. So that's the only big thing I'm gonna say I would change. The other thing, driving one of these, that is the only interesting thing that I notice a lot getting behind the wheel of one of these. These have some of the strangest side mirrors for anyone driving this vehicle. They're more vertical than they are wide. It's weird that the actual mirror, when you're looking at it, when you're driving this vehicle, the mirror seems so small, but the casing around it seems twice the size. So interesting to kind of see what they've done there. Love the fact that they can power fold in or out simply with a push of a button. So you can hit that button, it'll retract the mirrors in any tight parking spots. And I also love just the visual reminder that your vehicle is locked just by looking at this car. However, just the style of it is a little bit interesting. Again, I like the boxiness that they kind of kept that from the outside and they've kind of moved it to the inside, but it's just the one thing I'm not gonna be the biggest fan of. You guys let me know down below. So to wrap some final numbers up on a Land Cruiser, we're gonna start with fuel economy. Now, this being a hybrid, you would be expecting this to average some pretty good fuel efficiency. However, this is going to be averaging 10.1 liters per 100 combined between your highway and city driving. Now, I've got a few customers behind the wheel of one of these Land Cruisers currently. They're averaging in the low to mid 9s, with one actually averaging in the high 8 liters per 100. It is possible depending on the type of driving you are doing. Now, typically with our hybrid system, you benefit from that, typically going under about 35 kilometers an hour, which I know most people aren't doing on the everyday driving. However, if you're in the city, that's definitely more achievable for your driving habits. So you definitely could increase your fuel efficiency versus what Toyota is rating this as, directly from the manufacturer. Now, talking about fuel, that's where things get a little bit interesting. This is going to be one of our very few vehicles in our lineup currently that you need to be putting in premium fuel. So that's definitely a cost to consider before getting behind the wheel of one of these Land Cruisers. And then we talk price. One of these bad boys, being a premium package for the 25 model year, comes in at $84,257. That's MSRP for this model year. Obviously, you add in freight and PDI, subtotal of taxes, licensing, dealer charges, government fees, so that will add up a little bit on top of that 84 number I just mentioned. However, this being on the market and obviously competing very close to the Lexus GX, it's not too bad when you look at, pricing for one of these versus pricing on one of those. Now, if you're behind the wheel of one of these, you want to get behind the wheel of one of these, leave a comment down below. I want to hear what you guys have to say. And if you guys love the new design, hate the new design, which way you'd go between Lexus GX, if you're thinking of sticking with Toyota and the Land Cruiser, if you're changing manufacturers entirely, let me know, because I want to get some more comments going so I can answer some of these questions and comments you guys have to say in any future videos we will be releasing. If you guys did enjoy this one, please do not forget to hit like and subscribe so you don't miss any more of our future Toyota related content. Thanks so much for watching. Stay tuned for the next one, and I'll see you guys in the next video. What's going on, guys? It's Aiden with Upper James Toyota, and today I'm going to be reviewing our largest full-size SUV, which is a 2025 Sequoia. Now, this being a platinum model, it's pretty high up on the trim level. We're going to take a closer peek to see what this vehicle offers you inside and out. So stay tuned and let's check it out. Let's talk powertrain on the 2025 Sequoia. So this is powered by a 3.4 liter twin turbo V6. It's going to be pushing out 437 horsepower, 583 pound-feet of torque through a 10-speed automatic gearbox. Now, this is going to be our most powerful powertrain that we currently offer in our lineup. And for a vehicle at this size, it definitely gives you a lot of capabilities on the towing side, on the power side, and just getting up to speed, which is pretty cool to be having from a manufacturer like Toyota. Now let's talk about the front end to start. This is gonna be featured in Supersonic Red, which to be honest is not gonna be my #1 choice in color. However, I do think this color actually looks pretty good on this vehicle with all of the dark accents, which we'll be going over throughout the video. Now, looking at the front end design, your headlights to start with, that is a triple beam LED with sequential turn signals, which in my opinion is going to be the nicest style and the best visibility you'll be getting off of any of our headlights that are offered throughout our lineup. A couple things on the vehicle that I'm going to point out that I'm maybe not going to be the biggest fan of, but they are going to be coming standard on this package. Now, looking down below, you're going to have this big plastic piece. And if you see my previous videos, you know I'm not a huge fan of plastic. Now, this is what they call an active front spoiler. You can remove these. There's a couple different clips on the bottom half of this, and this is offered on a Tacoma as well. Now, they say it's supposed to be increasing your fuel efficiency. However, I think I'd be taking it off to actually challenge to see what you would average between, having this active front spoiler on or off the vehicle, because for me, it's kind of an eyesore on the front end. And for me, if you're getting up to any close, tight parking spots, because this vehicle is coming in as probably our largest SUV, it's gonna be close to the 4Runner size when the new 2025s actually arrive here. However, this is going to be something that you don't have much ground clearance off of. So I think that if you're pulling into a smaller spot, maybe that could give you maybe a few different issues when you are parking this vehicle, and something that obviously you wouldn't want to be breaking on a vehicle coming in at this price point. Now, the one thing I will be saying that I do like is going to this massive front grille. Now, I know it does have a little bit of chrome on this vehicle throughout, and I know as a platinum grade, the platinum badging is going to have a little bit of extra chrome. I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of it. I wish it was all black like they offer on a Nightshade version of this vehicle, but for me, it's not the end of the world because they've kind of kept it more minimal than obviously some other vehicles that we have in our lineup. Now, this being our biggest SUV, yeah, you can see that from the front end, this is huge. It's the one vehicle that I'm next to, just like a Tundra, that actually makes me feel a little bit smaller when I am next to it. And definitely on the inside, if you're a bigger family or you just want a lot of space, this could definitely be a vehicle for you. Now, interesting enough, on this vehicle, they're offering now a Sequoia, which will come optional with power retractable tow mirrors. Now, these will push all the way out just in case you are towing anything, because a Sequoia here in Canada does come tow ready. You take off a back clip on your rear bumper with these tow mirrors, you can push them out and you're clear to tow up to about 9,100 pounds, which is pretty good. So if you got, a larger boat, you're hauling a trailer, anything like that, this could be a very well-equipped vehicle for you. Now, on the sides, my favorite feature of this vehicle, there's going to be actually two of them. Number one is going to these 20-inch dark gray, or yeah, I guess I'd call it a gray alloy wheel. Now, this looks really good on this vehicle, and I think that obviously having a larger rim on a vehicle at this size is something that I would be opting in for. You could be upgrading to even 21-inch on a Capstone model. Those rims would probably be my favorite out of any Sequoia rims that you can get from the factory, but I would be more than happy with these ones here. Now, the other feature I'm a huge fan of is going to be once you're on the side of this vehicle. You can obviously see it says platinum badging on the side, and it kind of has some of that dark chrome, but it's not the actual, bright chrome like you see on the front grille. But when you actually get over to the side of the vehicle, you open the door and your power folding retractable running boards will come out for you. And then as you close the door, they will obviously then retract back up to the side of the vehicle. You can turn that feature on and off just in case, you're next to a curb, something like that, or say it's super, super icy, you didn't want to damage anything, you can turn that off. But I think having a vehicle already coming equipped with that gives you a lot of value for money in the price point that a new Sequoia will run you. Okay, now taking a closer look onto the rear end of the Sequoia, you're in this vehicle because Toyota has opted in to give you some very large badging on the rear end of this vehicle. And as you can see, Sequoia written all the way on the bottom of your trunk. And I'm happy Toyota has done that, because typically they opt in to put something smaller as your, vehicle logo, I guess, on the rear end of your car. So typically it would say, RAV4 there, but in this case, I'm happy it's written in large that says Sequoia on the back. The only small decal they've added on the rear end of this vehicle is going to be in the bottom right corner, which will say iForce Max, because the new Sequoias are only offered with this powertrain, which is a hybrid, which is nice because a vehicle this size, obviously you'd want to be saving some gas versus some competitors on the market. Now, couple cool things that you do get on this vehicle straight from the factory in Canada. Number one is going to be this cover down here, which is going to be for your tow hitch. So all you have to do is throw a ball mount on it with a ball, and then you can tow up to about 9,100 pounds. So anything larger, a smaller utility trailer, a boat, even like a small little, pop-up camper, you'd be more than happy with this vehicle to actually tow that for you and your family with all the space that this vehicle offers. With another really good convenience feature, you can actually open up this rear glass by simply hitting this little black button here. You pop it open and you can load anything in. So if your car was packed all the way full, you could at least throw stuff in to make it more accessible for you and your family, throwing, any last minute things up to the cottage into the rear trunk of this vehicle. Now, it also opts in with your kick sensor, so you can put your foot underneath the rear bumper and that will open up the trunk for you, which I think is obviously a very convenient feature. Now, if you guys saw that on camera, because sometimes it's a little bit harder to actually see, your rear turn signals and lights back here are going to be sequential and LED. So it just gives the vehicle that much more of that premium look. And I think Toyota has done a pretty good job in styling this, huge SUV that we offer. Now, with the rear seats currently up, you actually still have quite a bit of usable storage space. So these are the mats you get with the vehicle. The summer mats are here, the winters are inside, and obviously this is still going to be giving you quite a bit of space on the rear trunk space for this vehicle. Another cool thing that they do offer is that you can actually move around this loading height, and you can actually put these shelves in on each side of the vehicle. So in case you had, a stack of different groceries or, a couple gift sets or some small things you didn't want to be like, slamming around in the back, and you want to actually kind of, separate them in the rear, you can do that with this vehicle, which I think is a pretty cool, option to at least have just in case you and your family had stuff to throw into this vehicle. Now, this is going to be one way you can configure a Sequoia. You can also configure it as an 8-passenger. This is going to be a 7, so it's going to have a bench seat in the second row. We're going to take a closer peek to look on the inside of this to see what this vehicle offers, because there's quite a lot on it. So let's go in and check it out. All right, guys, let's take a closer peek onto the inside of the Sequoia. Now, this vehicle is going to be our largest SUV that we currently offer, and you definitely feel that being on the inside of this vehicle. Now, a lot of things are laid out here, and it's very accessible for users. And that's something that I noticed when this vehicle was, refreshed. They did a very good job to make the layout newer, but also keeping it very, user-friendly in case you were one of those people that had the old generation Sequoia or were just looking to getting into a newer SUV, that you don't feel overwhelmed on the inside, with all the capabilities this vehicle does offer onto the interior. Now, a couple things that I will be saying on this specific trim level that I'm a huge fan of. Number one, you get power passenger and driver seats with genuine leather, which are heated and cooled just like your second row as well. Both people in the second row, there's no bench, just the captain seats. Those ones will be heated and cooled, which is obviously just giving more, features, I guess, for anyone else you'll be having inside of this vehicle. A few other things that I also love on this vehicle, which if you see my previous videos, I'm a huge fan of a moonroof. So having this open definitely makes this vehicle feel even bigger than it is. And it actually feels very large when you're driving it. Typically on a vehicle, I've never really said in any of our lineups so far that I feel too big on the road. You definitely feel, in charge, I guess I could say. So you definitely feel a bit higher up and a bit more in power, especially with everything this vehicle does have to offer. A couple things though I will be saying that I love. If you go onto your infotainment system in this vehicle on this platinum grade, this is going to be a 14-inch touch display with wireless Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, Sirius XM, all the good stuff. You go down here to this little vehicle logo, I guess, and then hit seat controls. From there, you click the only option, which is massage, and you either then pick your driver or passenger. So I'll pick driver in this sense. I will go to say upper body, turn the power is going to come on, and your intensity. You've got 5 different levels. And now the rear of my seat is actually kind of pushing out on my back, which is really nice. I think that it is a new feature that we've added onto some of our 2025s. And I think that it's one of those things that kind of, make a trim level like this feel a little bit more premium, because if you're taking this on a long road trip, just having your back kind of moving in a different way definitely would make you feel, I guess, a little bit more, at ease while you're driving, say for 5, 6, 7 hours or doing, some kind of long road trip over, a course of a few days. Now, that's standard on this vehicle. And I think that that mixed with, say, your JBL sound system, your digital rear view display mirror up here, your largest screens, your full digital tachometer in front of you, it does offer a lot of great capabilities onto the inside, and you don't have to do, a whole lot. Like, it's very simple to simply, navigate through this screen or navigate through all of my controls down by my left knee down here. So for example, if I was towing something and I wanted to pop out my mirrors, I simply push out this button that pushes out my mirrors, and then very simply my mirrors would then push out so that if I'm towing something, I can see way more of actually what is behind me. Now, with a vehicle being this size, I'm just going to move the key up here next to the wireless charger. You can obviously have a lot of spots and different space, I guess, in this vehicle to throw stuff in. So if you pop open in the middle here, you've got 2 cup holders here. You actually theoretically have 2 as well in both of your doors. So you're going to have theoretically 6 up front with another 2 right here. Now, these are going to be built, I guess, maybe for the passengers in the back, but they also have cup holders in the, in between their center console there. So you do have a lot of usable space. you definitely look into the middle of your storage down here as well, you have quite more spots to put, you know, whether that's a laptop, an iPad, charging cables, anything like that. So I think they have done a really good job to kind of give you that larger feel on the inside of this vehicle, but also still giving you a lot of practical space. And I think that some manufacturers on the market and other vehicles in the market these days, you get a vehicle that's massive like this, but on the inside it feels a little bit more cramped, or there's maybe not enough storage space for, you know, an everyday user. So I think Toyota has done a very good job to add that in. Now, the last thing I will be saying on this vehicle, which is going to be more catered for someone if you're going to say off-road this vehicle, or if you're towing something and you want to change around what the vehicle is actually doing. You have all of your different drive modes down here, your tow and haul, which you have 5 drive modes, and you can obviously then shuffle between your 2 high, 4 high, and your 4 low. The really cool thing that I think that, you know, people would pay for on this vehicle, which I don't really think is really standard on a whole lot of our vehicles, but it makes sense coming in at this price point, and obviously with the tow capabilities that this vehicle does have, is that this different settings down here, you've got 2 different modes with either manual or this one that kind of shows the Sequoia with 2 arrows. You can actually push this down and the vehicle has adaptive air suspension in the rear. So if you're, say, towing something that you need a little bit lower of the ball to actually drop down to, say, match up with a trailer, or you kind of want to offset that weight to make it easier to drive, you can do that. And I think that's a really cool feature that they can throw into the vehicle to either, say, get you unstuck in a situation or to tow something. They have done a pretty good job, you know, well equipping a vehicle at this price point, and as they should. You should be buying a vehicle that has a lot of features. Whether you use it or not, it's just great to obviously have it. The only one thing I'm going to be saying on this vehicle that I'm not a huge fan of on this grade specifically, maybe if the outside was a different color, I would be more in favor of this, but I'm not a huge fan of all of this blue stitching on the inside. I think that having that blue, it's cool, it's unique. You typically don't see a whole lot of that on the market, or say in a manufacturer like Toyota, but I think that I would much rather that be either white or just black, or maybe, you know, a cool mix could just be color matching the actual outside color, which would kind of give you more of what, you know, what the outside's doing versus the inside of the vehicle. That's just the only thing I think I would be, say, adjusting on this vehicle. But other than that, I think that on the inside and outside, they have done a pretty good job to well equip it. Now, I'm gonna jump into the rear just to see what the space is like onto the second and third row. So let's go on and check it out. Alrighty, now jumping into the rear seats of the Sequoia. Now, I'm more than comfortable back here. I think that this being our largest SUV, I should be feeling comfortable. If you're having people that, say, are a bit taller like myself, I want to feel very comfortable in the rear seats. Now, in the third row, maybe not so much, and that's okay. I'm happy at least they have usable space, whether, you know, this is a 5-passenger in the second half of this vehicle, so a bench and a bench, or like this one, captain seats with the bench in the rear. I still think that is, you know, giving more families and more customers that accessibility getting into the third row. And I think I would configure mine this way. I think not having the bench, if I didn't need the 8 passengers, just simply getting in and out, this makes it so much easier. Rather than dropping the bench and moving the seats forward, you could actually walk all the way back and then obviously scoot yourself back into the third row there. Now, sitting back here, a couple things that I will be noting that, like I mentioned in the front, cup holders there's a lot in this car, and they've kind of overkilled the cup holders, but that's okay. It's better to have too much than too little, I think. So you've got 2 in the middle here, 2 in the middle up here, and then in your door, you theoretically could put another 1 or even 2 if you drop the water bottle and laid it flat. So again, storage space is huge on a vehicle like this, and they have delivered in a very big way from Toyota's side. If you're ever in the back of one of these and, say, the sun's coming in, I like how the fact that this has built-in sun shaders. So you simply pull this up. It's really easy to do so. There's a clip here and a clip on the back, which just makes it very accessible for anyone in the rear, just in case it was a bit, you know, sunny outside and you didn't want to close the moonroof all the way. This is a pretty good option that obviously comes standard from Toyota. Now, the only thing getting into the rear of this vehicle, there are a couple things that they have added, which I think I mean, at this price point, I would assume. But it's nice because into the third row, behind this seat, it's kind of awkward to reach back there right now, but you can actually retract the third row with a simple push of a button. You push a button, hold it down, and the seats will actually retract for you. So again, it's way more accessible, but then again, I also do like the feature of just pulling a tab and the full thing comes down all in one. So if you had, you know, groceries and your hands were full, that's definitely making it a bit more accessible for anyone into the third row. However, talking about the third row, I'm gonna jump back there. It's probably not gonna be the most comfy for someone at my size, but I'll at least take a seat. I've actually never sat in the third row of a Sequoia before, so I'm kind of interested to see what this does versus, say, a Grand Highlander, because that's probably the closest thing size-wise that you'll be getting with, you know, usable space. So let me climb back there and I'll see you guys in a second. Okay, now we're in the third row of the Sequoia, and probably by the way you're looking at me right now, I'm not sitting the most comfortable. Now, I do have the option, and I guess all three passengers in the back do have that option to actually recline this even further. So I have a button on my side, I simply push it and I'm kind of like lounging now. So that actually made it way more comfortable for me. I don't think I would be complaining. Maybe if I was a little bit claustrophobic, which I actually am. So maybe eventually if this was all the way packed and I had all my buddies sitting next to me, maybe it wouldn't be the most, you know, I would say comfortable ride that sense in actual space back here. But you know, if you're talking about if I fit, I do fit. So that is pretty crazy that I could be fitting into the third row of one of our SUVs. Now, if you want to just simply retract this, I'm going to ask for Alex's help, and he's simply going to hold a button. This will fully fold flat for me, which is actually pretty nice. And with that down, that actually gave me way more space. So I'm more than happy here now. If I had all three of these seats taken up, it might be a little bit more different. But I think that with this being said, I'm actually pretty happy here. And you do have that option into the trunk. You do have buttons in the rear of this trunk to actually fold these seats down and your actual middle row too. So I think that, you know, accessibility wise, they have done a pretty good job. Now, talking cup holder theme, which I mentioned there's a lot of in this vehicle, you still get a lot into the rear. So I've got two on my side, there's two on this side. There's a small little cubby down here, which you can't see, but there's not a whole lot you could put into it. I would say maybe the size of a phone, but it does have a USB charging port on top of that. So it's at least nice giving some, you know, charge to, you know, your third row passengers. You don't have to be in the second or in the first row. You can definitely get a charge anywhere that you're sitting on the inside of this vehicle. And now, similar to the middle row, like I was mentioning, you actually get built-in sun shaders on the rear of this vehicle too. So in case you're in like a sunny spot, or you know, you just wanted that closed up, you actually do get a little bit of privacy if you ever needed that into the third row. But all in all, I actually think they've done a pretty good job. And this versus, say, a Grand Highlander, you know, I know they come in at different price points. There's different engines, there's different powertrains, a lot different power, different capabilities of this vehicle. But I know that if you're, say, upgrading from a Highlander, say a Grand Highlander Hybrid Max, to an entry-level Sequoia, yes, you are moving up quite a bit on the dollar side of things, but I'm interested to see what you guys would think of if you say, you know, this was in your budget as well, but obviously if this was in your budget, the Grand Highlander Hybrid also would be. Which one would you rather go for? Do you think you're getting more value for money on a Sequoia side, or is it a Grand Highlander side? Because these vehicles are pretty similar in the sense of how many people they can carry, different features on the inside. It's mainly just space is a little bit bigger on this. It's more of that boxy feel, even from the outside, but it's more true on the inside. You definitely feel like this is just as wide as the back than it is in the front. So I think Toyota's done a pretty good job, and I'm interested to see what you guys say down below. All right, guys, there you have it. The 2025 Platinum Sequoia with tow mirrors. Now, this vehicle coming in for the 2025 model year, MSRP $97,625 plus this paint. This paint, Supersonic Red, is an extra $255 from Toyota. But genuinely, from the price point of this vehicle, with all the features that are offered and stuff that you wouldn't have to worry about, like running boards, like obviously your powered seats in the third row and in the second row, tow hitch capabilities right from the factory, this does give you quite a bit of options for the dollar figure you're spending. So I'm interested to see what you guys think. Is this something that you would be opting in for or considering for your next, you know, full size 7 or 8 passenger vehicle? Let me know down below in the comments. I'm interested to see what you guys have to say. Again, my name is Aiden with Upper James Toyota. Please don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss any more of our future Toyota related content, and we'll check you guys out in the next video. A new year means a new design. Next to me, I've got a 2025 4Runner TRD Off-Road Premium, and this is gonna turn some heads in the 2025 new car market. My name's Aiden with Upper James Toyota, and today we're gonna be going over what's different and what's similar from the new body style versus the old body style for the 4Runner. So stay tuned and let's check out this car. If you guys are in the market for a new or used vehicle, do not forget to click the link in the top of our description. Now let's talk redesign on the 25 4Runner. I think this is gonna be my favorite looking 4Runner to date that Toyota has released, but it's gonna come with quite a few changes. And arguably the biggest controversial topic is going to be powertrain. We have seen a huge change from the manufacturer in the last 5 or so years. With the Tundra, with the Tacoma, with the Sequoia, I could go on and on about vehicles in our lineup, and the 4Runner is going to be one of the top ones to chat about as well. So out goes that naturally aspirated 4-liter V6 paired up with a 5-speed automatic gearbox, and in comes a 2.4 turbo 4-cylinder making about 278 horsepower, 317 pound-feet of torque going through an 8-speed automatic gearbox. That is going to be the biggest talking point on the new 4Runner to see longevity of what these engines will do over time, because if you knew anything about the prior generation or generations of 4Runner, you knew that vehicle was pretty bulletproof. Now, talking about design, and that's gonna be one of the biggest things in this video I'm gonna be touching on, is that I really wished when they, released this new vehicle, I assumed the inside would look like a Tacoma, and it's pretty true. It is pretty Tacoma-like, even Tundra-like. There are similarities between quite a few models in our lineup currently, but the biggest thing was gonna be outside. I really hope that they kept that kind of retro style 4Runner, but obviously made it and updated some of the appearances on this vehicle, which I think Toyota's done a pretty good job at doing so. Now, featuring this TRD Off-Road Premium, this is one of our newer colors on today's market, which is Underground. It's a dark gray, so out goes that magnetic gray metallic, in comes Underground. I think it's a pretty cool color to offer in one of these vehicles, and I think it suits, the looks and capabilities of a 4Runner pretty well. Now, looking at the front end of this vehicle, a couple things, and if you've seen any one of my previous videos, you will know I'm not a fan of this active front spoiler. I think that it's a big eyesore. I would be taking off of my personal vehicle, and it definitely limits, obviously, front capabilities, bringing this car into a parking spot, because obviously that's not a whole lot of ground clearance versus actually where your bumper would finish on the front end of this vehicle. So that's up to you. Toyota obviously rates that this is going to improve aerodynamics and fuel efficiency when you're driving one of these. So if you have one, if you're waiting for one, let me know if you guys would be leaving that on or taking that off, because it's simply just about 4 bolts you'd have to unscrew and the full thing will come off for you. Now, looking at the front end design, I think they've done a pretty good job. I like the fact they're integrating, new headlights, new fog lights, and I like the fact they've kind of kept this similar to the Tacoma in the sense that your fog lights now are more centered into the middle of your bumper, and they're going to be running parallel with the road ahead of you. Obviously, having that vertical LED, like I've mentioned on an XSE version of a RAV4, for example, I like the look of that. It looks pretty sporty, but it's also not as practical, because obviously 2 vertical lights versus 2 horizontally mounted lights, you're gonna have more, visibility out of the horizontal lights than the other design. So I'm liking the fact that Toyota has gone that route to style the front end of this 4Runner. Now, talking about the 4Runner, this is offered on a gas model, which is here in front of me, in 2 different configurations, a 7-passenger or a 5-passenger. So this is your fully loaded version of a 5-passenger, and a limited would be a fully loaded version of the 7-passenger. And whenever I get one of those, I do know we have a couple interesting versions of the new 4Runner arriving shortly. I'll be doing a TRD Pro version of this video, probably come late May, early June. So definitely stay tuned to check that one out, because I'm interested to see what that looks like versus just the gas model of this vehicle, which is here in front of me today. Now, taking a closer peek, I'm happy to say a couple things that they've kind of kept the same on this vehicle, and they've integrated nothing crazy new. I always say, you don't have to fix it if it's not broken. This old generation of the 4Runner definitely was not broken. They had a few things, or actually quite a few things they had to update, but I like the fact they're not doing anything crazy, especially when it comes to wheels. Now, you're still getting nice 18-inch TRD off-road alloy wheels on this package, and I like that. A beefier tire tire looks good on this package, because I've mentioned this before, and you'll see a video up on the channel about a Land Cruiser that I talked about, simply due to the fact that I like that you have a vehicle that is so practical, yet you could also take this off-road and not have to change a whole lot on the vehicle. I've had, some customers have Jeeps in the past or different manufacturers, and they always change around stuff. They throw new tires on, new rims on, bigger tires, off-road looking tires. You kind of get all of that directly from the factory, which I like in Toyota's sense. Now, talking about things you get from the factory, you'll be getting these, which are running boards. And I like the fact Toyota's offering that free of charge, at least in the Canadian market, in case you want running boards to get in and out, because yes, this definitely sits up a little bit higher amongst our entire lineup of SUVs. If you have seen any one of my previous videos, I'm gonna touch on this again, and I'm sad that Toyota has not changed this yet. And I know this is not the hybrid version. I'm gonna look at what the hybrid version has to offer when it is here, but I wish they just simply glossed this out. It's something so small, but I think consumers would want that. I don't know if people like this matte black look. I think, if it gets scuffed, it's a bit harder to clean than other materials that it could be on the outside. So you guys can let me know what your thoughts are on that. I'm gonna take a closer peek at the trunk, so give me 2 seconds and I'll be right back. Now, taking a closer peek onto the rear end of this new 4Runner, it's gonna be my favorite side of this vehicle to look at. I think what they've done to style these rear retro style taillights, they have done a pretty good job and blown this one out of the park. Now, obviously, that's just my own opinion. I think looking at this vehicle next to an old generation one, which one of my colleagues does drive, I like the design of this rear end a lot better than the outgoing model. I think the front end kind of looks like a Tacoma, maybe even like a Sequoia, but the baby version of that vehicle. I think that the rear end of the 4Runner definitely makes this stand alone as a pretty interesting rear end that we don't offer amongst our entire lineup. Now, I do like a few things that they have added onto the back end of this vehicle. Number one, they are tow ready to go. So directly from the factory, you will get your ball mount, so you could tow whatever you would like on this vehicle. And I think, having a larger vehicle and a vehicle that you could tow something on, I like the fact that you don't have to pay anything extra for that from a manufacturer like Toyota. I also love the fact that written in big letters says 4Runner on the back here, just letting everyone know you are in that new design for the 25 4Runner. And lastly, everyone's favorite feature from the outgoing model on the 4Runner, on the Tundra, on a few other vehicles in our lineup, I love the fact that your rear glass can also slide down or up. And I always love the fact I've been driving on the road before and seeing one of these loaded with a few dogs, and their heads are out the back, enjoying a fun little drive with their family. I always love seeing that, and it's something pretty cool. If I was a dog, I'd love to have that option on one of these. Now, opening up the rear end of the 4Runner, space is still obviously a #1 thing on this vehicle. I love the fact that you could load this up with a lot of things. Now, this being a 5-passenger, obviously this is gonna be the most spacious one you will get between this and a 7-passenger. So if I'm gonna configure a 4Runner, I don't need the 7 seats. I would go 5 seats all day long. Yes, I know there are a few things that the Limited gets you that the TRD Off-Road Premium doesn't get you, but those are very minimal in my opinion. And I think, judging off what's in front of me today, I would be saving that extra, cash I'd be throwing to get into a Limited and just staying with this package here in front of me. I think that having these seats that fold all the way down, a very deep trunk, this kind of looks almost like Land Cruiser trunk size. So I like the fact that there's no sloped back. I like the fact that there's actually more space above here, and that, the roof lines of this vehicle don't limit any space on the inside. So I'm happy to say that, judging off of just cargo space, the accessibility to having all the seats folding down, your cup holders in the back, if you are in that 7-passenger, I'm interested to seeing how this is the first one that we have here today, that, having that second row into the third, or into the trunk of your vehicle is gonna definitely limit your trunk space. So stay tuned, because I'm definitely gonna throw another video out on a 7-passenger just to see exactly the direct comparison between this 5 and a 7. Let's talk inside of the new 4Runner. I'm gonna be starting with something that can change between all 4 of these gas models. And it's going to be this trim or, plastic insert that they offer on the front end of this vehicle. Now, this is gonna be something that is gonna be featured in today's current setup as smoke silver. And it's the only option you can get on this version or trim level of the 4Runner. If you moved to a TRD Sport, you could get smoke silver or anodized blue. Now, I have seen that vehicle in person. It is probably the weirdest color combination Toyota could ever do. And it's funny how they wouldn't offer like a red, which is more suitable to our actual brand, which is, white and red. I think that would make more sense, but it is so strange. And if I ever get one in, I need to do something to show you guys what this blue looks like, because it looks like the Tacoma blue. And it's funny how something so small like that is, something that you could customize in your new vehicle. And having the blue, take it from my experience, it is a big eyesore. Some people may love it. I just think it looks really weird because a TRD Sport is only offered with these very, very interesting different, woven fabric into this like cloth seat that they offer, which is a silver and like a black combination mixed up with this blue. It's definitely not how I would spec my 4Runner. You could obviously get it with this smoke silver. That would be my preferred. But out of all 4 trim levels, I think this would hands down be my #1 pick. Color customization on outside and on the inside. Now, talking inside, this is where things, I kind of feel like I'm a bit underwhelmed, I guess, on the inside of this vehicle. Because when I look out, sure, I definitely don't feel like I'm in a Tacoma, but everything, that's inside this vehicle, and if I blacked out all of these windows and the sunroof and the front dash, I would think I'm in a Tacoma. And that's the only thing I'm just kind of not really jumping for joy on. Maybe just because I work for Toyota and obviously I see these vehicles every single day. That's the reason why I'm gonna push that way. However, if someone was really looking at a new design 4Runner who hasn't been in a new Tacoma, for example, they would think this is a massive upgrade. And don't get me wrong, it is a huge upgrade, but I just feel like amongst our entire lineup, it's just kind of the same thing as a Tacoma. I've had a lot of customers wanting to come in to drive this, to see it in person, see what the space looks like, see what the new design looks like, how the new engine feels when you're driving it, so on and so forth. But just sitting in it, I really don't know how excited I can be about the inside of this vehicle just because it feels like a Tacoma. Everything about sitting here, having this arm handle here, the way this is laid out, the new screens, they've done, yes, a great job at it, but you blindfold yourself getting into this and a Tacoma, take all the windows away, you probably cannot tell which one's the 4Runner and which one's the Tacoma. So interesting what Toyota has done there. I get it, you're using the same parts and whatnot, so it's better on the production side to actually get these, produced and out to customers who are waiting, which I know there are quite a few of you. However, it's just an interesting design and an interesting route Toyota's decided to go on that vehicle. Now, specifically talking about this trim level of the 4Runner, I think #1, I like the fact these are not genuine leather seats. These are Softech seats. So the 4 trim levels on this vehicle, SR5 and a TRD Sport, are the only 2 that come with cloth. Then the TRD Premium, which is here in front of me, this one's gonna be coming with Softech or leather seats. Then you have the genuine leather on the limited side. And like I've mentioned in a previous video before, I like the fact having Softech seats because they don't cost as much to repair. And obviously, looking at them and feeling them, it pretty much feels like leather. I can't really tell a huge difference. They might be a little bit harder than actual genuine leather, but for me, that's not a reason to upgrade to the limited model, in my opinion. I love the fact that, out of the fact that this does look like the Tacoma, I like the fact that, this vehicle needed a redesign bad. They needed a redesign safety sense features, design features. They needed a new interior option to actually give customers more bang for your buck on what you're spending, because most people obviously are on the inside of their vehicle way more than just staring at it in your driveway. So having those features like your massive 14-inch touch display, your JBL sound system with obviously something that's shared in the Tacoma, which is your pop-up JBL sound speaker, I think is pretty cool, which again is waterproof up to 4 feet. If you feel that adventurous to chuck it, into some water, you can do that according to Toyota. Other than that though, there's really not a whole lot that I'm really jumping for joy on the inside of this. And I know that might, maybe turn some heads and I might get some, kickback for saying that. But honestly, jump into Tacoma, jump into this, they are very similar. However, I think what you're getting on this front of things on the 4Runner side, say versus a Land Cruiser, which is only offered as a hybrid, or you look at a Tacoma, for example, I like you're getting way more space in one of these and more value for the dollar that you're spending versus those 2 vehicles. However, if you guys are in the market for one, I want to know what you guys think on it. I don't know, which way I would go. I think, out of our lineup, there are quite a few vehicles I would love to be driving and having, parked in my garage, this being one of them. However, I would be honestly taking a few other cars before I take a new 4Runner. Now, jumping into the second row of your new redesigned 4Runner, I mentioned in the trunk that I like the fact that your headliner kind of had that, opening space above the actual trunk and your cargo capacity. I like that. I don't like how the fact that this roof is sloped down, and you can really notice it sitting in the second row of this vehicle, which I'm not going to be a big fan of. It definitely doesn't feel as spacious as this vehicle looks from the outside. And I left my seat exactly where I was driving it. Sure, it probably could be a little bit further, pushed forward. However, sure, I'm sitting comfortable, but I don't know if I'd be that comfortable for a pretty long drive in one of these. So that's just my opinion. Now, I like the fact that they still have a few convenience features on the back end of this 4Runner. I love the fact, I don't know if you can see this, that the cup holder is actually situated right here, which is a new design for any of our cup holders to be up here next to basically where you would open or close your rear windows back here. I like the fact that it's not down here. You do have a storage compartment down there. However, that's more accessible rather than reaching all the way down for your drink. Obviously, you do have two cup holders in the center here, and even more into the third row if you had a 7-passenger configured 4Runner. But I like the fact that's pretty easy to grab. I also think it's interesting, Toyota typically would do 2 horizontal mounted USB-C charging ports for any of your rear passengers back here. They're actually stacked vertical next to your 120 volt outlet back here. So kind of interesting, you have all of this, space here, which I'm assuming is going to be for climate control on another trim level that you could get for this vehicle. I just haven't seen it yet, so I can't comment on that. I've seen pictures online, of course, but I obviously want to see one in person to obviously give you my honest opinion about that. The only other thing I'm complaining about on the rear end of this vehicle is that there's no moonroof on this 4Runner, and I wish they put that on. I think that's something so simple that would just open up this vehicle even more. Good, it has a sunroof. I would expect it at this price point. However, it's funny how on one of our spec sheets, Toyota actually says, it has a little plus and it says moonroof, but it's funny, that's not a moonroof. That's just your simple, regular sunroof that's in, all of our RAV4. So interesting what Toyota has decided to do on that front, but I'm really interested to actually see what most consumers think about this new vehicle. If you guys, had an old generation 4Runner, if you were waiting for this new redesign, if you're waiting, a year till they've started production on this, to kind of wait until there's any, kinks that they had to kind of, get out of this vehicle as they're still producing it, let me know, because I can tell you, at least from my personal opinion, working for Toyota, I need to be very honest about what I'm telling the consumer. And I will tell you guys very honestly, like I've told other one of my customers, that I'm really underwhelmed in this new 4Runner. I think, sure, it looks great, but it's basically like a more spacious Tacoma to me, which is just a really interesting decision that Toyota has done to remodel a vehicle, especially at this price point and at this caliber of one of our vehicles. This being one of our most sought after bulletproof vehicles that could go through anything. Interesting what Toyota has done, and let me know what you guys think down below. Now, this being a larger vehicle, obviously fuel consumption is going to be a pretty big talking point on this 4Runner. Now, the old generation with that 4-liter naturally aspirated V6, those bad boys were heavy on fuel. They averaged a combined 13.8 liters per 100 kilometers, which isn't that great in today's market. Then you think, oh no, Toyota's gonna change that on the redesign. They're gonna throw in a smaller engine, which makes more power, a better transmission, you get more gears on the outgoing model. Fuel efficiency will be so much better. And it has improved, but nothing drastically. One of these new 4Runners on the gas model side averages 11.1 liters per 100 combined between city and highway driving, which I was pretty shocked at. I expected that number to be much, much lower. And maybe nothing crazy like the hybrid side of things, but at least into the mid to high 9 liters per 100, I was going to assume. So it still is gonna be a bit heavier on gas, and I'm interested to see what future clients will tell me they're averaging on one of these new 4Runners. Now, fuel taking that into consideration, we need to talk about price. This not being a fully loaded version, it's gonna come in as the 3rd highest trim level on this new gas model 4Runner, but it is going to be the fully loaded version of the 5-passenger. One of these bad boys being a Tier D off-road premium comes in MSRP for the 25 model year, $63,702. Adding obviously freight and PDI, your taxes, licensing, any dealer charges, government charges, and then this bad boy is on the road and yours. So let me know. Obviously, that is a bit of a price jump from the last generation model in 2024 with the old tech, the old engine, and the old body style. So do you guys think that price is justified? Let me know down below in the comments. Again, my name is Aiden with Upper James Toyota. Thanks so much for watching this video. If you did like it, please do not forget to hit like and subscribe so you don't miss any more of our future Toyota related content. And we'll check you guys out in the next video.